I'm going to explain inductive and deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is reasoning from particular instances to a general conclusion. This is the type of reasoning that takes place in physical science, and these conclusions that are reached from inductive reasoning are never 100% certain. They're always probable. And let me just give you an example of that. Let's suppose that I've never seen human beings before, and the first human being I see, well, let me change colors. The first human being I see is this one right here, this red-headed human being. Then I see another human being, and this human being also has red hair. Then I see a third human being, and this human being has red hair too. And then the fourth one, same thing, human being with red hair. And so therefore I make the inductive conclusion that all human beings have red hair. Okay, I made this conclusion based off inductive reasoning. Why? Because this is a particular instance. This one right here was another particular instance. Here was another particular instance, and then of course my fourth one was a particular instance. And then I made the conclusion all human beings have red hair, which of course is false, because you cannot reach certain 100% certain conclusions based off inductive reasoning. Why is that? Because I can have a fifth human being come over here, and this fifth human being has black hair. So this particular instance right here is an exception to these. So instead of making that certain conclusion, what I should have said is that all human beings probably have red hair. I should have said that because inductive reasoning only yields conclusions that are probable, because you can always have a particular instance that you have not seen yet that can ruin your conclusion. Now, how does this translate into modern physical science? These particular instances in modern physical science are the experiments. And you can always do another experiment. And you can always do another experiment with different variables. So there is always the potential in modern physical science to have an additional experiment that can show that your conclusion is false. This is why the conclusions from physical science can never be 100% certain. That's why if you ever hear somebody, especially a scientist, say that some conclusion that they've reached is beyond a doubt, not questionable, 100% certain, then you should be weary of accepting that claim, because the nature of inductive reasoning is to yield results that are only probable. Deductive reasoning is reasoning from general principles to a particular conclusion. Here we have a deductive argument, and it uses deductive reasoning. Here at the bottom we have the conclusion, and then we have the premises. All men are mortal and Socrates is a man. Now the nature of a deductive argument is that you go from more general to more specific or more particular. So even though you may not be able to see it in some arguments, the premises, especially the first one, I mean, you could see it with this argument. In the first one, we have all men are mortal. I mean, that's a very general statement. In fact, you could tell that it's more general than the conclusion, Socrates is mortal. But with the second premise, I mean, you can't really see it too much, because Socrates is a man. It seems to be, I mean, the same type of generality as Socrates is mortal. But the nature of the deductive argument is that you have premises that are more general. The reason why these premises are more general is because the terms are used in a more general way than the terms are used in the conclusion. So sometimes you can't see this, but if you study the rules of validity of Aristotle, you will encounter something called distribution, which has to deal with universality of the terms. And you would be able to understand how the terms are used in these premises, and in a valid argument, how they are used more general than the terms are used in the conclusion. So this is what leads to the necessity of the conclusion, is that the terms in the premises are used in a more general way than they're used in the conclusion. So if these premises are true and the argument is valid, then the conclusion must be true. I mean, that's the type of necessity that you would get in a deductive argument.